That one's also on my double gold nugget selling CD worldwide on Apple iTunes. Oh, we still have a few left too, by golly. Regular $149.99, today just $10. Says I to my missus, by gum, gal, you's something I see on your mind. Says she, you're right, Kris, I've something, but it happens it's on me behind. It's a boil that'd make Job be jealous. It hurts me no end when I sit. Says I to the hospital, missus, they might have to cut it a bit. Says she, I just hate to be showing the part of my person it's at. Says I, don't be fussy. Them doctors see sights far more horrid than that. So Mrs. gets fixed up all fancy, and there at the hospital door, she's told to see the house doctor, whose office is room 34. So she hunts up and down till she finds it, and she knocks, and a voice says, come in. She enters. She sees this handsome young feller in white, from his heels to his chin. I've got a big boil, begins Mrs. It hurts me no end when I sit, and Kris, that's my husband, has asked me to ask you to cut it a bit. Blushing, she plucks up her courage, and bravely she shows him the place. And he gives it a proper inspection with a heap of surprise on his face. Then he makes a most serious statement. What you have is a boil. I can feel, but you better consult the head doctor. We call him Professor O'Neill. You see, ma'am, well, he's special for boils and carbuncles. You'll find him in room 63. Huh? Oh, no charge, ma'am. It's been a real pleasure. Tell him you're coming from me. So Mrs. she thanks him politely and hunts up and down as before, till she comes to a big handsome entrance with Professor O'Neill on the door. Once more she plucks up her courage and knocks, and a voice says, all right. She enters. She sees this fat feller with whiskers all togged up in white. I got a big boil, begins Mrs., and if you'd kindly permit, I'd like for you to inspect it. It hurts me like all when I sit. Blushing as red as a beetroot, she hastens to show him the spot. He looks at it with a look of amazement and says, sure, ma'am, that must hurt you a lot. Then he puts on his specs to regard it, says with a sort of a frown, I bet it's as sore as the devil, especially so when you sit down. I think it's a case for the surgeon. You better consult Doc Hoyle. I have no hesitation in saying that your boil is a hell of a boil. Mrs. she thanks him politely for saying her boil is a hell of a boil, and she hunts up and down till she comes to a room marked Doc Hoyle. By now she is near to a frenzy, and she's trembling in every last limb, but she thinks after all, he's a doctor. I mustn't be bashful with him. She's made a good stuff as the missus, so she knocks. And a voice says, who's there? It's me, says my Billie, and enters a room which is spacious and bare, and a wise-looking old feller greets her, and he too is togged up in white. Ha-ha! It's the room where they cut you, thinks Billie, and shakes like a jelly with fright. I've got a big boil, begins Mrs., and if you're quite sure you don't mind, I'd like for you to inspect it. It hurts me because it's behind. Thinking she'd best get it over, she hastens to show him the place. And he looks at her very surprised like and turns cherry red in the face. said it, folks. Most conscientious, huh? From every last angle and view. And with a shrug of his shoulders, he says, "Poor lady, I'm sorry for you. Now that needs to be cut. But you should have a medical bloke to do that. Why don't you go over to the hospital where all them doctors is at? You see, this part of the building is closed on account of repairs. Shucks, us fellers is only the painters, painting the halls and the stairs." The Ballad of Bessie's Boil by Robert W. Service, and starring my wife, Billie. Thank you. I'm Kris, the Motorcoach Commander Mueller, and I hope you all have a great stay in Alaska and safe trip home. Thank you very much.